Hey everybody, we're in the studio today looking at some images from a previous trip just outside of Pagosa Springs, Colorado. I have one particular image that I really like. Nice moody setting, storm rolling in over the grass plains. And one of the reasons I really like it is it kind of breaks the rules. You don't have the horizon on the 1/3 lines. You got no central focal point, not using the golden ratio. Do have this one lone tree out here that I feel draws your eye into the image, makes you a little more present in it. But overall, I just think it's a nice, moody, pleasing photograph with good contrast and highlights. Looking at that contrast and highlights is one of the things that makes me think this is really going to look good in black and white. So I'm going to bring you guys along for the process, and in the end, we'll see what looks better. This is the edited color version, and we're about to dive into the black and white. So I'm going to create a virtual copy here. Click on that image and reset it to what it looked like out of the camera. Alright, so we reset this image to out of the camera. We're going to come over here and change treatment to black and white. And one of the first things we're going to do is fix our horizon here. It looks a little off to me. That looks better. And then hop into our main sliders. Pretty happy with the exposure. I wanted a little on the darker side. Bring my contrast up just a little bit. We'll do a little more later down here in the tonal curve. And then I have my shadow clipping and highlight clipping turned on so I can see when that occurs. I'm going to boost my whites till they start to clip, then dial them back just until they're not. Drop my blacks and do the same. And then I'm going to adjust my highlights and shadows just to where I think they look good. I want my shadows to be kind of dramatic, so as I drop those down, I start clipping again. Bring my blacks back up. And same thing with the highlights. And bring them up to where they look good. And then drop my whites back down. So we ended up with +5 blacks, +21 whites. And just set the shadows and highlights where we want them. That's about it for the main sliders. I am going to dial my texture and clarity back just a hair. I want it to be a little softer, have a little bit more of that look like it was taken on film. And now we're going to mess with the tonal curve. Bring up my blacks and drop my whites. It's kind of an artistic look, so your blacks aren't pure black and your whites aren't pure white. I'm going to drop my shadows. Boost my highlights. Give it that nice S-curve contrast. And you just got to kind of play with it till you get it where you like it. And I like that about right there. So now is where the magic happens. We got our black and white mix on all the color channels. And you just want to kind of play with the sliders. They'll brighten and darken certain parts of the image. So this is darkening your oranges, this is brightening them up. You just kind of play with it, put it where you want it. I want to boost my yellows because that's where my highlights are. And I'm going to drop my greens just a little bit. Give it a little more punch. Our blue I'm going to bring down because I want that nice dramatic dark sky. I don't think there's going to be much purple or magenta. Just leave those sliders alone. And I think that's it for right now. We're going to dive into some mask. And I'm going to use one of the new tools, Select Sky. Give it a second to think. And there we go, we selected our sky. It's not perfect, but we can clean that up some. So I'm going to hit the subtract button, brush. I have auto mask turned on. And now we can just take away where the sky bled over into the foreground. All right, there we go. I want to add a little more contrast into our sky. Just get some separation between the highlights and the dark parts. Just kind of a light hand here, not doing a whole lot. And I'm going to bring my clarity down just a little more. Give it that nice, dreamy, stormy look. I do see while I'm here looking at the sky a dust spot on my lens. So I'm just going to clean that up right now while I see it. Come over here, choose the heal tool, and boom, done. Come back over here, double click to zoom back out. And I think that is pretty good on our sky. Come back over here to the mask tool again. I'm going to duplicate and invert the mask, which is going to select our foreground. And it did a pretty good job, needs a little cleaning up. So I'm going to hit the subtract tool again, choose a brush, make sure I have auto mask turned on. And that just uses a little AI to tell what you're trying to subtract and what you're not. You don't have to be quite as perfectly accurate. See, if I turn the auto mask off and I come in here and I go over the foreground, it starts dipping into it. But with auto mask on, it knows not to do that. I hit Control Z to reset and start messing with my foreground. I'm going to really boost the contrast. I'll take my shadows down, my highlights up. Texture there looks pretty good, texture and clarity. I kind of like that, but it needs a little more. So I find this foreground right here a little distracting. It's a little too bright. I'm going to fix that by creating another mask. I'm going to bring in a linear gradient. Just drag that up to about there. And drop my exposure. And I'm going to drop my texture down a little bit so it's not quite so distracting. We'll create another mask, another linear gradient. I'm going to do the same thing on the bottom of the image. Just kind of help draw your eye upwards towards the brighter parts. I'm going to drop the color down a little bit there as well. And to me, that looks a lot better. Now for a little dodging and burning. So I'm going to stay here in the mask and I'm going to create a brush. Kind of like using the brush for the shadows. Drop my exposure down just a little bit. And I'll come and just kind of burn in the darker parts of this image. Using my mouse wheel to change the size of the brush. All right. You can see what I did there. Just kind of took the darkest shadows, made them a little darker. This is going to help it pop even a little more. I'm going to create a new mask now, and we're going to do a radial gradient. And this is going to be for the highlights. For this, I like the radial gradient versus the brush. And we're just going to kind of take the lighter parts of the image and make it look like the sun's peeking through there. Bring it up a little bit, at half a stop. And then I can just right click on that, hit duplicate, drag it to a new spot, and resize it as I like. Oh, didn't mean to do that. And we're just looking for places where there's already a bit of highlight, making it pop a little more. Can come over here on the edge and click right there to tilt it, there to drag it out. And there we go. Can hover over here, see what we did. Just brought a little light peeking through the clouds onto the foreground, adding a little drama to the photo. And for that, that's pretty good. Really liking how the image looks now. I'm going to come back over here. Just a couple more things to do. So I kind of like to give my black and whites just a little hint of color in the area of the mood that you're trying to portray. And for this, I'm looking for that real dark, stormy, tornado land look where the sky almost takes on a hue of green. So I can do that by coming over here to a global adjustment. I'm going to drag my color over here to the green I'm looking for, and by dragging this we can put the saturation. You can do everything right. It's a little easier to control right here. So you see as I move my hue slider, it's moving along the color wheel, and then my saturation moves in and out on the color wheel. So I'm going to bring just a tiny bit of green into it. Not a lot. I'm only 3 on the saturation. And luminance is how bright and dark your global adjustment is. I'll leave that the same. And then the only other thing I want to look at for this image, I believe, is the grain. How much grain we want to apply. So I'm going to come over here to, let's do 50%. I'm looking at the sky. Let's go 100. So it already has a little bit of grain. Already kind of has that film look. I like that. So actually, I'm not going to mess with that at all. Double click the reset. And let's check her out full screen. There we go. There's our edited black and white image. And I am pretty happy with that. Here it is before. So here we have the color. And here we have the black and white. And I'm torn. I can't really decide what I like more. Let me know what you guys think. Oh, there is one more thing I want to do here. So this tree, while it's not really a focal point, I do like that it's kind of centered on that vertical line, and it draws your eye into the image, which makes the one next to it a little bit of a distraction. I'm going to get rid of that. I'm going to come in here with the heal tool, resize with my mouse wheel the brush, click on it, and see how it did. Alright, that's pretty good. Zoom back out. And alright, we're done. Let me know what you guys think. You like the color? You like the black and white? Did you enjoy the tutorial? And thanks for watching. If you guys have not subscribed, now would be a great time to do so. We're shooting for weekly videos and really trying to turn out the content, help everybody take some better images and just talk photography. Alright, have a good one.